Right, so now that we actually have our project folder created, um, when you open up After Effects, you're going to be greeted with a window like this, which is really cool because this is where I could make a new project. I could open an existing project. I can also open them down here, which is a nice way of not losing or seeing what version, the project or projects that you're working on. Up here is really awesome because there's tutorials really built in, and that will give you a lot of resources. I can click right here, and I encourage you to go through some of these because there's a lot that you can go through, and you see they're really short, at least most of them. But you can do some really sweet stuff, and it's only going to be restricted to one, how elaborate you are, and two, how much time you have. So, but going through these in addition to the videos that I'm giving you is going to give you a lot of stuff that you could do if you want to venture out and add stuff for extra points and credit, if it's appropriate, not just to do a bell and whistle. What we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new project, and then you have this. So then I have my interface, and we'll go over what all this means, but the first thing we want to do is all get on the same page. So depending on which version of After Effects you're in, it may be a little bit different, but it's essentially the same. We have default learn, so if I did want to go through some of those videos, I can pull them up here as well as add some that I want to go through. And I actually encourage you to go through some of these, even with the videos that I gave you, just so you have a more robust number of resources. So this kind of takes the place of the book a little bit, or it's a great companion to the book. I have standard, small screen. So if you're working in a smaller screen and you need more real estate, like a tiny little 15-inch or something, then this will probably work really well. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of modifying. And if I make a layout, we'll talk about this later, you can save when you have that configuration that you love. If you look at this little guy this guy right here, these are opening up the little windows that we use, and you can customize it based off of what you're doing. So if I'm working on animation, I might want this one. And this is my play and what frame rate and all that good stuff. If I go here, essential graphics, so if I'm doing a lot of different types of adjustments with graphics that I'm using, working mostly with color, with effects. Here's my effects and presets that I can add and use. We'll be using that one a lot later. Painting text. So here's all my text info that's here. What we're going to do is I'm just going to say all panels for right now so we have access to everything. If something is missing, or if you go for the more minimal one where you don't have like this stuff here, all you have to do is go to Window, and this is where you go to turn on things that are missing. So if I'm missing brushes or the alignment tool, so I can align things, I can just turn them on here, and then you see they pop up in the window over there. So before we get started, we need to create a composition. So I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to say standard. So I have this stuff, and I'll turn on things as I need them. And I want to make a composition before we get into what all this stuff is, because right now we're blank. This is just the program, but I don't have a composition. What a composition is you're going to be using several of them. They are, in essence, containers. So I can have lots of compositions within my movie. And it's a ways of breaking up elements of my movie. So I could have a composition that has certain things moving and animating, and just make that one comp and then put that into another composition. So then it becomes like a screen that I can move around that's animated and has stuff going on. It's also an easier way of layering things. So it's super useful. But we need a composition with its settings to be able to animate and create things. Because this is, if a composition is, let's say, a sandwich, then all the things in the sandwich are in the composition. And the analogy would be like, oh, the pickles, the ham, the whatever, lettuce, tomatoes, whatever you want inside of it would be in a composition, and and that would be images and video and shapes and logos and all sorts of things that you would put into it. And then I could stack those sandwiches on top of each other in different ways. So I need to make this, and I'm going to click. And what I'm going to use, just to start off with, just to make sure also your machines are not chugging too hard, HDV/HDTV 720, which is the HD, a lower HD resolution. That's 720 and 1080p. We're going to do 720. And 29.97 is the frame rate. So how many frames per second is it going to show? So it's going to be, kind of smooth. We're going to look at that. So you should see 1280 by 720 pop up. If it's off, then you picked the wrong one. I'm not going to worry about the comp name right now that I would normally name, because right now this is just a demo. So if I want, I could just say demo. I'm going to keep everything else the same, and we'll talk more about this later when we start talking video footage. So our first one's going to be 29.97 frames per second. Full resolution. If your machine is chugging, you can always drop it to half resolution. And so even though my comp is 1280 by 720, what I'll be seeing is a lower res 640 by 360, which should, if your machine is like, oh, I have an old machine, it's not doing well, then dropping it down to this while you're working will be a good thing. And then my duration is how long is this composition. And that, right now, this second from the last set of digits is seconds. Okay, then we'd have minutes, and then we'd have hours. So 30 seconds for right now is fine. We'll adjust that and can adjust that at any time. But right now, just for this comp, 30 seconds is great. And then I can choose what my background is going to be initially. Is it going to be black? Is it going to be white? And this is going to be dependent on what you're doing and whatever. But we're just going to keep it there. And now I have a composition. I can start creating things. It's showing up over here. I've got some, my layers are starting to kick, my timeline's starting to kick in, and I have something I can work with. So in the next video, we're going to go over the interface, and then we're going to go over starting to create and bring stuff in.